Welcome. I'm Harmony Slater, your host of the Finding Harmony podcast. Over the past 20 years, I've taught thousands of yoga teachers and students to explore the intersection between ancient wisdom and modern everyday life, using mind-body practices to heal, awaken, and manifest their dreams from the inside out. This podcast is a sanctuary for those feeling overwhelmed by life's challenges. Are you ready to jump in and discover how these challenges aren't actually in the way, but are the way to finding harmony? Let's invite the magic back in. Well, hello. December is upon us. Welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast. With this December month, it's really the darkest time of the year. And maybe if you're anything like me, in December you start to cocoon, but you also start to kind of feel a little bit mystical. There's this sense of magic in the air, whether it's Santa Claus, Saint Nick, or the Yule traditions, and tapping into this sort of magical time that's both a mixture of deep darkness, especially if you live in Canada, but also glimmers of light and hope and kindness. And today we are going to meet with an incredible person. It's fun is waiting for you. We are meeting with Letao Wang, who is a spiritual counselor. He's also an astro-mythologist, and he has created some beautiful oracle decks. So if you are looking for a gift for your loved ones who's into kind of the mystical, witchy, mythological space, then you might want to look into his Oracle of the Celestial Deities deck or his Oracle of Mythic Heroes deck. They're beautiful and fascinating. I love them, and I think it'd be a great gift. But this time of year is a time when the veil between the worlds becomes thinner and a little bit more transparent, a little bit more transmutable, and connecting with the spirit realms feels very accessible. So today we're going to look at how you can harness these energies, how you can connect to your own guides, and learn about Letao's journey and how he learned to communicate between worlds and communicate with guides and become an oracle or a transmitter of energy, of communication, of messages, and how using cards or decks or different tools, maybe it's runes, how these can also help to focus these energies so that the messages come through even more clearly. And be sure you listen to the end because we have a really fun message that's just for you. It's specific. We're pulling cards. There's 2 outcomes, and that's all I'm going to say. You're going to have to listen all the way to the end to participate in the fun divination that we have in store for you, just so that you can end your year on a positive note and feel like you're also receiving the guidance that you need. And I would encourage you to continue to explore how you can tap into this magical, mystical time of year where the darkness and the light are battling it out in the cosmos, and we get to experience and immerse ourselves in the drama of it all. So let's jump into this beautiful, mystical, fun, wild ride with Letao Wang. Hi, welcome to the Finding Harmony podcast. I'm your host, Harmony, and I'm here with Russell Case.
我是译者老师。
Not bad, not bad. Our guest today is living in Hong Kong, and his name is Wang Letao. Hello, Letao. How are you?
Hello, Harmony and Russell. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
I'm going to try and speak as many of the Chinese words that I know throughout the course of the podcast.
We were just talking about your name, and the meaning in Chinese is happy
The
path,
happy
or the
path.
happy Tao, or
Happy
joyful
Tao.
Tao, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You sound very aptly named. I'm very interested in your life's journey, this happy journey you're on, because it seems like you're going to have like a good Chinese son, a very modest traditional path with a education, and you're going to become a psychologist, a counselor, but maybe you took a left turn.
Yeah, I did. More than one, actually.
More than
Yeah.
one
More than
couple,
one.
full circle.
Yeah. Yeah. I spent most of my time actually, going the wrong path, to be honest. And then, at some point, depression would hit. And then you come to this realization that, okay, something must change, right? And yeah, it's just never a very smooth path. But I guess that's for most people, right? I mean, no, most people don't really know what they wanted, especially when they were young.
Can you describe the first time that realization happened to you, that you were in the wrong place, doing the wrong
Doing the
path,
wrong
and then
thing? Yeah.
and then a depression came, and then you was like, oh, I need to do this. Maybe
Oh,
that
yeah.
was counseling. I don't know.
Yeah. So that was probably around the age of 17 or 18, I would say. Yeah. So when I was younger, 5, 6, 7 years old ish. And, because of my father's job, he had a lot of collaboration with Japan. And so I had opportunities to travel to Japan, right? Family trips and things like that. And I always felt very connected to Japan. And I felt good when I'm not in China. But when it comes to my school education, I had to, do my elementary school, middle school in China. And I was severely bullied actually in school. And I really hated that experience. And so, when I was 17, 18 years old, I realized that China was really not the place for me. It was really not the place where I can build my self-confidence when I feel I am loved and appreciated. So, yeah, so the moment I finished high school, I went to Japan for university. So that's the first realization that I had. And when I left, because, most people, right, when they, especially at that age, right, 17, 18, when you go abroad to study, you might be thinking, okay, I'm going to study, finish my degree. I'm going to come back and, find a job, right? That's what most people do. But for me, at that time, the moment I actually hopped on that plane, I had no intention to come back, except for seeing my parents. Yeah, for me, it was like, this is it. This is my goodbye to my past. And either I become successful in Japan or I die on the street in Japan. That's my choice, but I'm not coming back. And so that's the determination that I had when I left. Yeah.
你喜欢日本語？
もう大好きです、本当に。
He doesn't just like Japan, he loves Japan.
So nice.
Yeah.
Do you speak Japanese then?
Yeah, I speak Japanese better than English, actually. Yeah.
Because you speak English much better than I speak Chinese.
Well, when I speak Japanese, Japanese people wouldn't be able to tell I'm Chinese. So I don't speak Japanese with an accent.
Impossible.
Yeah.
That's so hard.
So that's the reason why I feel a sense of belonging. When the funny thing was that, I didn't speak a word of Japanese when I first went to Japan. At the age of 17, 18,
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I knew simple phrases, hello, thank you, all these kind of things, right? But when I went there, I wasn't able to communicate with people whatsoever. But probably, I would say, in about a year and a half or to 2 years' time, I just became fluent. And so I really felt that there was something really pulling me. Something was leading me towards Japan. And that's where I found I had a not just one, but several, a very profound transformation within myself. Of course, this journey was way before my spiritual awakening. At that time, it was very much about my, academic excellence and, how to rebuild myself.
One of your master's degrees is in translation. So that makes a lot of sense. Like, this is your kind of dharma, your kind of life's mission, is because you have such a facility for it, evidently.
Yeah, so at that time, I really felt, a language was my thing, right? I wanted to pursue this. And actually, so for my first master degree, I did a master in simultaneous interpreting. So my dream was to, work for the United Nations or, move to Geneva, all that kind of, when you were young, you dream, right? It's like, oh yeah,
big
I can do
dream.
anything, right? And literally, I mean, we were trained actually in that way. I don't know if you have seen the movie by Nicole Kidman, right? Interpreter,
Yes, yeah.
right?
Yeah, I've
You,
seen that.
right? You
Yeah.
know the movie, right? So, you'll be sitting in a glass booth and you have a headset. You're listening to your host or whatever, speaking, and
Yeah.
you translate at the same time.
Wow.
So we were receiving that kind of training for, during the entire program. And it was very funny. So Russell, that leads to the thing that you are asking. So, what was the turning point, right? So that was my second turning point is when I finally finished my training and everything, I was ready to finally leave school and become a full-fledged person working for this, so whatever organization. Yeah, I changed my mind.
What made you change your mind?
I don't know. I fell out of love with it. I didn't want to interpret for other people whatsoever, because I guess it also had a lot to deal with several placements that I did when I was in a grad school. One of the things as an interpreter is that you never get to speak your own voice. You will always repeat what other people are saying. And the difficult thing about that is sometimes the person that you're interpreting for, of course, who is paying you, has very, very different opinions compared to yours. But you still have to say it as if it's your own opinion. And I hated it. I don't agree. And I don't want to say things that I don't want to say. But that's how you get paid, right? And so and that's one of the realizations I had. Because, when you were dreaming about being a successful interpreter, you were dreaming about having the perfect job. You love the person who is hiring you. You agree with them, right? And you're their voice. But actually, when you're really working, that's rarely the case.
Yeah.
I was thinking that in my mind, and I wondered if the answer was that you wanted to have your own voice rather than speak someone else's voice. It's interesting. You said exactly what was in my mind.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think as a good interpreter, they will have to be able to do that. They would have to be able to not have this strong desire to be heard. Let's put it this way. And I think this has a lot to do with my childhood, because I was bullied in elementary school and middle school. So I was never heard. So my voice was always being either neglected or being disrespected, including, when I wanted to have a voice within my family. And I was told not to speak because it's just not our culture, right? Yeah, so I think that was when I finished grad school, I was 24, 25 years, yeah? And finally, I just realized that I don't want to do this at all, actually. And that's my second realization. But then the depression hits. Okay, but you have been receiving training all these years from your undergrad to your postgrad. You've been working so hard for this for the past 6 years. So now you don't want to do this. Okay, so what do you want to do then? I don't know. And so that's, again, what the hell, right?
Perhaps this is when you sought counseling. Sometimes people become counselors because they receive such a good experience in counseling.
Actually, no, because I didn't start studying counseling after, I would say, 5-6 years after I started my spiritual career. So counseling came much later, yeah. And so at that time, it was really, I think the universe brought this guy to me. So he was my first astrology teacher. I was living in Sydney, Australia at that time for my master's degree. And just, that was exactly the time when I was, saying I was depressed. I didn't know what I want to do. My graduation was like, it's just several months away, but I don't want to do interpreting at all, right? And so just one day I was walking down the street in a neighborhood in Sydney called Newtown. And it's a very trendy area, like shops, cool cafes. I was with a friend and we saw this very weird shop in Newtown with a skull being displayed, right? With all the kind of magical stuff there. And I was like, what is this? Let's just go inside. And my friend was like, no, you go inside first. Because we were young, right? We were like 23, 24. And we just went to the shop very awkwardly. And in the shop, there was a guy sitting there. And he said, do you want a reading? I didn't even know what a reading was. And I said, I'm a student. I don't have money. How much is it? And he said, okay, just $20. And I was like, okay, $20 I have. Yeah, I have $20 to splurge today. So I paid $20 and he did a very short reading for me. I would say probably 15 minutes, maximum 20 minutes, something like that. And a lot of things he said to me at that time made sense, but also a lot of things he said did not. And I was like, okay, that's fine, whatever. It was entertaining. Thank you very much. So I paid, I left. But what was really amazing was after about 3 months' time, all the things he said to me came true, including the things I didn't believe.
Wow.
So something hit me at that time, right? So I went back to him. I said, can I have another reading? Again, I only have $20. So, I don't mind if it's a short reading, right? And again, there's a lot of things he said made sense. A lot of things he said didn't. But I tried to keep an open mind about this. And again, about 3-4 months later, everything came true. And so there's something in me realized that there's a lot more than what I knew in this world. There's a lot more than, even though I felt that I have studied a lot, but obviously I knew nothing about this world. And slowly, so I became a little bit like a regular person, going into his shop. Doesn't mean that every time I would do a reading.
With
but
your $20?
Yeah, well, I didn't have a lot of money, right? But I was just interested. So I would walk into the shop just to, have a chat with him or, because it's a shop, right? So he also sells stuff.
Yeah.
He sells crystals or whatever. So I would just, do some window shopping right there. And until one day he said to me, he said, Letao, I think you're talented. You should study this. And of course, so that's how I started learning astrology and mythology as a hobby, right? Because it's just something you want to learn, right? Because it was fun. And the moment that when I realized that I really wanted to go into this field was this feeling that I had when I was learning Greek mythology from him. He was, he was not really a traditional fortune teller, right? He was very much like a mythologist. So, even when we study the planet, right? So we're looking at, the astrological entities in the sky, let's say Venus, Mars, Mercury, right? Instead of just teaching me what they mean in astrology, he would tell me a story from Iliad and Odyssey. And after the story, he would say, so Letao, you tell me what you think it means on our chart, right? Based on what you understand about how Aphrodite or Venus behaved in the sea and things like that. And it was almost like a door being opened in front of me. I never felt such happy feeling and this sensation inside me, that, wow, like I love this. I never, ever felt this more than when I realized I love learning language, actually. And so that's the moment that I realized that this is something special to me. But of course, I didn't see this as a profession, right? Because, it's just such a far cry from the life that I knew at that time. But that's the beginning of how I got into this industry, yes.
Wow, it's so interesting to think about astrology and its connection to Roman and Greek mythology. And of course, it's there, but it's not the first thing you think about when you think of astrology.
Yeah, so it's very much about archetypes, actually, right? So, the famous Swiss psychologist Carl Jung, he's a very famous archetypal astrologist, right? So, basically, his theory is about every single planet that we're looking in astrology is an archetype. And it's the same, in mythology. Every god and goddesses, every hero and heroine, they are the archetype that we see, in our daily life. And by studying those heroes and heroine stories, we kind of like see a reflection in ourselves. And that's how we learn things, right? So, and I really loved that. I loved that system, and I really enjoyed exploring the gods and goddesses. And that's the reason why I created the 2 decks, right? So one of them you have in your hand is called Celestial Deities. The other one is called the Oracle of the Mythic Heroes. And that one was the first publication that I had on...
Beautiful.
Yeah, so this one came out in January this year, so about 5 months before Celestial Deities. And so this one is a little bit more focused on the mortal heroes and heroine stories. So in this deck, you're going to find, for example, Hercules. You're going to find Theseus. You're going to find Atlanta. You're going to find Orpheus, those mortal hero stories. But the one that you have celestial deities, that is more about the deities, so the gods and goddesses, Athena, Zeus, Poseidon. And the cool thing is you can actually use these two decks together. And so they complete the whole mythological journey because the stories are between the gods and the heroes, right? So when you use these two decks together, you see the whole, I mean, I don't dare to say the whole Iliad and Odyssey, but you know what I mean, yeah? Because I'm trying to make this one big picture for us. And then so reading the stories in each chapter of this and also the celestial deities, basically you also learning on the Greek myth.
Yeah, amazing.
Harmony told me that I'd be very interested in our conversation today because I do so much enjoy Greek mythology. I feel like this kind of this connection there because of the archetype, as you said, that you feel this sense that, say, 5,000 years ago or 3,000 years ago, people are having the same feelings that I'm having. And they're telling the same stories about the same kinds of issues. And so you look at the story of Zeus and Hera, and you see the problems of the parents and their disagreements.
100%.
And maybe you project yourself onto Mercury or Hermes as the willful boy who is trying to make sense of the world while his parents are fighting. And then in the same sense, you can go right into any kind of story, any kind of myth, and see the same pattern, like Arthur and Guinevere and Lancelot and the child that takes the sword from the stone. Like you see yourself in the story. And it's a very similar dynamic. And so I think there's probably similar kinds of dynamics in, say, Indian and Chinese mythology.
100%,
And so we've talked before on the show about Wendy Doniger and how she connects mythology from around the world. But I just want to bring this back to you, is that in tarot or in astrology, I think what becomes very interesting is that when you see a particular situation, archetype or story or narrative, and then you project yourself into the card. Say you get the Hanged Man as a card, or I think I got Medusa as a card, one of your cards. And you project yourself and you say, like, well, what meaning do I have? And it arises almost like in, like you said, Jungian or Freudian way. It arises in your subconscious, this reaction to the card. Is that where the oracle comes from? Is that where the creation of the meaning comes from, or the fortune telling?
Right. So I don't really know the origin, but one thing that I know about the whole foundation of all types of esoteric study is this concept called as above, so below, as within, so without. And so this concept is basically saying that whatever that is happening within here, it's reflected on your outside world and vice versa. And so when we are trying to pull a card, it's specifically in a card reading, whether you're using tarot or oracle cards, or you're using maybe simple playing cards, right? Cartomancy. Whatever thing that you're using, or maybe you're just reading turtle shell, right, in ancient days. It's a little bit like that. It's a bit like whatever that you are seeking within here, and then the cards or whatever that is outside you will be a mirror reflecting that energy. And so sometimes, yes, you can use cards for the so-called fortune telling or making predictions. But usually in my counseling sessions, when I'm dealing with a client, I'm trying to use that as a diagnosis tool to see their psychological activities, what's happening in there.
In the same way you might present a Rorschach block to a patient and see how they respond to it.
Correct, And that's why, this is exactly what counseling is about, right? It's about raising self-awareness. And then whether, at a later stage after the diagnosis, whether the client wants to work on it, or sometimes they don't, right? It's really case by case. Then it's about the next, for example, the action plan and the practical effort that they can make when they leave the session. But I really feel that the session itself is about giving them a mirror. And it's very interesting that you talked about the figure Medusa. And Medusa is about reflection, because in the myth, right?
Oh, yes.
Right? She's
very much so.
She's about reflecting, because she was conquered by a mirror given to Perseus by Athena, right? So I would say that, the whole thing about doing a session with clients and reading cards, it's about that reflection. And that's why usually a spiritual counseling session can be very, very beneficial if the aquarian is ready to reflect. But usually it's difficult when they refuse to. But that's the thing, yeah.
It's so very difficult to realize responsibility.
Well, I'd tell you the story of how your beautiful deck came to me. It arrived. I'd totally forgotten about everything and that there was anything coming my way. And it was June 21st, the summer solstice, which is also my birthday. And it arrived on my birthday.
It was summer solstice.
Oh, wow.
It arrived.
Okay. Wow.
And it was also a full moon.
And it was a full moon. It was a full moon, the summer solstice, and my birthday. And I got your cards. And so then I made everyone in my family draw a card for their year.
Yeah.
And that's why Russell got Medusa. I got Jupiter, which I was very happy about.
Oh. And how interesting is that? Because on the cover of this deck, that's the goddess of the moon, Artemis, and you got it on the full moon day.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I did get it on the full moon day.
You did.
So there's a lot of synchronicities, right? It's meant to be.
I was really jazzed about it. I was thrilled. I was like, this is meant to be. This is going to be amazing
Best
here.
birthday present ever, you says.
My son pulled Neptune.
Which is amazing because Neptune and Poseidon was his favorite god because he's reading the stories about Poseidon.
And Perseus, Perseus.
Percy Jackson.
Percy Jackson, yeah.
How old is your son, may I ask?
13 and a half.
Oh, okay. 13. So perfect age to read mythology. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's true.
Perfect.
That's true. The same for me.
Yeah. So it was very auspicious.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah.
So you have this interest, back to your story, you have this interest in mythology and in understanding, I guess then, like where the planets are in relation to the houses in someone's chart.
So I studied astrology first, right, with my first teacher. And then, after I finished my entire program, I had to leave Australia. And, I got and then I got a job back in Tokyo. So I moved from Sydney to Tokyo again around 25, 26, I think, yeah. And then, I was just living a very normal, in Japan, they call these kind of people salaryman. Basically, you wear a suit, you go
salaryman.
Salaryman, right?
Yeah.
And so you just you either work for a bank, you work for whatever corporate, and you become, that's how you start your life. And I was just assuming that's just what it is. And I would always see, cars and astrology as a hobby back then because, sometimes, I don't know, I'm sure you understand it. Sometimes it's not just about what you want to do. Sometimes you have this subconscious responsibility that you're also doing this for other people. And you can't just do whatever you want to do because you live in a society. You have responsibilities towards your parents who paid for your education, right? You can't just be like, okay, now I want to be a fortune teller. You can't do that. And so there was a lot of, I didn't think about that, right? But it was, I think it was definitely at the back of my head. Kind of like, I wouldn't say trapping me there, but kind of like framed me in an area where I wasn't able to see what's beyond. And then the more I studied, the more I felt drawn to this. And then when I moved to Hong Kong, still I was working in the corporate environment for a few years. But I think around the age of 28, I had my first Saturn return, which is also the same for everyone. And that's when I really had had depression. And at that time, and I remember very, very clearly, I think it was my 29 years of birthday. It was just me with my best friend, right? Two of us. And, he brought me to this amazing restaurant in Grand Hyatt. And, we were having this beautiful steak, right? Everything was amazing. And I burst into tears with him. And I said, I'm not happy. And he said, like, what's going on? We need to talk about this. And I said, because I don't know what I want to do. I said, I'm 29 years old, right? I have a job, but I hate it. I'm stuck in this job. I don't know what I want to do. And And I can't see myself feeling like this for the next 50 years. And I can't pretend
Right.
that I'm okay with this lifestyle until the day I retire.
Yeah.
I can't, that's not me. But if you ask me, so, okay, so live the life you want to live. I don't know what kind of life that I want to live. And that's where depression comes from, right? Because once you know what you want, at least you can take actions. But the most scary thing is you don't know what you want, but you're also unhappy, right? And so I think about 3 months after my birthday, I had a dream. And I don't know if it's my, my angel, well, whoever is really trying to help me. And when I woke up from that dream, everything became clear. I don't want to work in a corporate environment. I want to be working in the spiritual field. I want to do readings. And I suddenly remembered my first astrology teacher and how much I admired him and how much I wanted to be him. And then that just came to me. And I was like, okay, so this is what it is. And no doubt, no, maybe yes, maybe no. Yeah, and that's how I just started everything. Of course, the beginning was also not very smooth, right? And you can imagine having no experience doing readings, and suddenly you have a client sitting in front of you, paying you, and they're expecting you to help them. And as a 29-year-old guy, because during my initial days, I had clients, female in their 50s or maybe 60s, and so first of all, when they're sitting in front of you, they are already intimidating because there's judgment. Okay, so this is when I realized that when some women say when they go into a boardroom, there are a whole bunch of men sitting there and they feel intimidated, they feel judged, and that's how I felt when I was facing a much older female client because she was judging me. She was basically looking at me and saying that, what do you know about life? You're younger than my son, right? So I'm paying you, but show me what you can do. That kind of judgment. And so it was very difficult, but slowly, right? You make mistakes and then you become better, and then the rest is just history.
But at some point you must have something must have sparked in you to go in and do a master or a master's in counseling, or what was it that you wanted to go deeper into the psychology underneath things, or what was that about?
Love that question. Thank you for asking me that. Yeah. So that's the third awakening that I had. So that was probably, I would say, 5-6 years after I started doing readings, right? The more I did readings, the more I realized that I was less interested in predicting people's future, to the point that I actually don't really think that's important whatsoever. And so that's why I almost had this, it's actually not good for me, right? I had this resistance towards wanting to answer a client's question when the question is purely based on what will happen. I was not interested in answering those questions. And I felt somehow when someone asked me that question, it almost made me want to assume that they have already given up on their personal will, because they're focusing so much on the fate. For example, at what age will I get married? Well, don't you think that you are responsible for that answer? So, but, definitely doing that does not help with my session, because one of the key points about doing a session, what clients want is they want compassion. But if you feel like this towards a client, you can't have compassion for them. If a client says, I haven't been working for the past 6 months, and I want to know when I can get a job. But if my first reaction is, but you're not looking for a job, you're lazy. That's why you don't have a job. See, if I feel like that, I can't do counseling because I have no compassion for them, right? Then then my attitude becomes judgmental. Then I become, critical, right, towards a client. And nobody comes to a session to be criticized. And so that's when I realized that I really need to systematically study the art of counseling. I want to know, to be a true counselor, what it requires, and to be a true healer and the therapist, what is required there, and how I can master that. And so that's when I went back to grad school. I think that was back in 2018, before COVID. And I decided to study counseling in a scientific way. And of course, that was also a weird thing, because when I studied counseling, all the people, right, students who studied with me together, they were either, working in HR, right, because they kind of related, right? They work in human resource, or maybe, or maybe they. I remember we even had a priest studying there, right? Because, religion also kind of similar, right? And there are also other
they do
people.
a lot of counseling.
Yeah, right. And when my teacher and also, other students ask me what I do, because most of the students, they are not, young. A lot of, I would say 80% of us were, in our 30s,
Older.
40s, or maybe even 50s, right? Looking for career transition, things like that. And I tell them what I do. Some of them are very fascinated and interested, and some of them are also very judgmental. And when I felt the judgment, and I was thinking, well, that's the reason why you also need to study counseling, perhaps just like me. Yeah, but anyway, so that's the story. And I spent 2 years, doing that program. And I have to say, I learned a lot about counseling, even though some of the things that that were taught in the program was already done by me subconsciously in the session. But I was able to make it more clear, I guess, more on paper. And so you understand it from a theoretical perspective. Okay, so this is what I've been doing, or this is what I need to do more. And this definitely helped with my session later. So that's why I never want to brand myself as a fortune teller, because again, I'm not interested in telling people's fortune. I guess I was more interested in being a therapist. But I want to combine the art of therapy with the mystical things in the world, such as astrology, such as tarot, such as oracle, and things like that.
I'm not sure I've ever heard of anyone doing something like this before. Like, I've been around a lot of counselors and psychologists, and they're into a lot of wacky things.
Yeah.
And they may study all the different religions of the world as a way to understand the self. But to start with, like, I want to be in front of someone doing a reading, and so I want to expand the possibilities of my craft by studying counseling for 2 years and getting a master's degree. That's such an astounding act. And I do apologize. Our dogs have lost their minds. And they're being very difficult. We had a tornado, and she's been absolutely
Like a
nuts.
hailstorm.
Hailstorm, and she's been nuts. But
well, I think they just need attention, right?
They get 3 walks a day. They're spoiled.
they're spoiled.
wow,
dwarfs,
3 times.
and they're supposed to be asleep right now.
It must be all your energy. It's
Maybe
like
they're hungry.
invigorating.
Maybe it's because they haven't eaten.
You didn't feed them?
Well, they wanted to come downstairs and be on the podcast. So I'm going to be right back. I'm going to give them
go
their
feed
food.
them.
Yeah,
That's
take your
why
time.
they're acting
take
this
your
way.
time. Yeah.
Okay. Tell
Okay, so I have a fun thing to do while Russell's feeding the dog.
Right.
Okay, so if you were giving a session, let's just do like a fun little moment. How would we start? Because I have some cards here. Do I get to pick a card?
Oh, actually, you know what?
Like a short one.
Yeah, you know what? Why don't we maybe pull some cards for our audience so that they also feel they're involved, right?
That would be great.
For all the people who are listening to this.
That'd be wonderful. Do you pull the card or do I pull the card?
Maybe you pull the cards, right? Maybe you do, yeah. So maybe we'll give them 2 options, right? Option A and option B. So for everyone who's listening to this podcast, maybe choose A or choose B in your mind. Whatever you feel resonated with, you want A or you want B. Okay?
Okay. I've chosen for B.
Okay, very good. Now, and then let's pull the first card for option A. And let's see what's the
for
answer
option A.
be.
Do I have to do anything in particular, like cut the deck or do anything specific, or no?
You can just pull any card that you feel that is right for A.
Okay, any card I feel that's right for A. Okay. All right, I got this one.
Pan. Okay, interesting. Okay. So
it's beautiful.
So for our option A people, right, you picked Pan. Now, one of the things that we need to understand about Pan is that Pan is the god of mountains and trees. You can see on the card, the graphics, right? He's, the background, right? It's very green. There's a lot of trees, and he almost looks like a goat. The way, he dressed and the way he looks, right? He's very far from a traditional god, right? If you think about what a Greek god looks like, you wouldn't think of Pan, right? You would think maybe someone like Zeus. But so this is So this is interesting about Pan, right? Actually, a lot of Christian people don't really like this deity because they associate Pan with the devil.
Yeah,
They
he's
think,
demonic. Yes.
yeah, right, they
And a
think,
lot of sex and drinking, I think, too, right?
yeah, right. So they tend to associate Pan with that kind of energy. But it's a huge misunderstanding because Pan is not a devil. He is the god protecting our nature. He's the one, protecting the wild animals and this natural sanctuary that we have. But when a lot of religious people, they go hiking and they see Pan, they will scream and they will run away because they assume they just saw the devil. And so Pan sometimes can actually bring a little bit inner fear in us, almost like we think we saw the devil, but that's a huge misunderstanding. One of the things that I realized about people who choose Pan or who tend to see Pan a lot is that they have a lot of anxious thoughts in their mind, or they tend to go through this what if syndrome. What if it doesn't go well? What if, my son doesn't pass his exam? What if my daughter, is in the wrong relationship? What if my husband is having an affair? Whatever this kind of anxious thoughts that we create in our own mind. But at the end of the day, it's all our own imagination. We have no physical evidence that certain things are happening, but we're suffering from our own this anxiety that we create in our own mind. So one of the things about Pan, I would say to people, Group A, whoever you have chosen A, is let go of your fear and anxiety. And you can do this through either your meditation or do a little bit journaling and to write down your thoughts. And what is interesting about journaling for anxiety is that once you really write down your anxious thought and you read it again, you realize that actually a lot of them don't make sense.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's just like your own misunderstandings about
correct. Yeah. And also
the
sometimes,
future.
and for some of us, we have this obsessive urge to fix things. I don't know if you can associate with that. And we feel that I have to fix everything and everyone, then I can relax. But Pan tells you that sometimes you also just have to trust that you don't have to fix everything and everyone, and things will unfold naturally as what they are. And so this Pan is a little bit like that. The second thing that I want to say Pan is actually something good I like about Pan is that Pan, because he's a goat, goats, they climb very steep hills. And they're not afraid. They're not afraid of falling, right, from the hill.
Yeah,
They would
no.
just keep climbing to the point that you're thinking, how does that goat get there, right? So goats, because they can climb very steep mountains, this is showing their resourcefulness. They'll always be able to find a way to get things done and to find an alternative solution, even though they're facing some type of challenges or difficulties. So Pan people, from my experience in my session, I realize they're usually very smart. They might have anxiety, but that at the same time, because they overthink, right? So this also shows that they
Yeah.
actually think of many, many different ways to solve a problem, sometimes to the point that is actually unnecessary. They might have 5 different ways and think, okay, if this doesn't work, I'll do this. And if that also doesn't work, maybe I can do that, right? So they plan this whole thing, which gives them anxiety, but somehow they will have some way to deal with the issue. And so that's a good thing about Pan. It's about their resourcefulness and it's about their intelligence. As an advice for group number A, for Pan, I will also say that sometimes also enjoy life. Because Pan, like what you said, Harmony, earlier, he drinks, he dances, he's drunk every day. He doesn't care, right? And
Play music.
Play music, and he's also highly sexual. And so one of the things actually about this Pan is sometimes we have to learn how to bring out that sense of hedonism in us as well. Life is not all about fixing problems and thinking about solutions. It's also about just have fun and enjoy. Have a drink, dance,
Relax.
go to see your friends, right? Have a party. And problems, we can think about that tomorrow.
Yeah. Mañana.
Yeah, that's how I see Pan energy.
I love it. I love this idea also of like meditating to relax the mind or doing some journaling to release the anxiety, to see your thoughts, to get them out of your head and onto the paper. That's so therapeutic and helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then go relax and have a party.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that's what they need to balance,
live.
right?
Yeah.
To live, actually. It's a card saying, please live. And I think that, far be it from me to criticize Christianity on this show, but I feel like that's the essential perspective of the Christian is to first subdue nature.
True. Yeah.
And Pan asks us to live in nature.
But it's also the energy of the masculine trying to subdue the feminine as well, which I think is interesting.
Pan asks us to enjoy it, to enjoy the masculine.
No, enjoy the feminine.
He's asking the female to enjoy exactly what she wants. I think we have different views on
Actually, Pan is very interesting, right? So, I mean, of course, Pan as a deity, right, in most ancient statues, right, if you look at him, I mean, he's a male. But Pan is also a beast, like it's an animal, right? Because it's a goat, right?
Yeah.
So I actually think that sometimes Pan is also showing that kind of androgynous nature in us because this need to have pleasurable experiences in life is genderless, I think.
Totally. Good. He made peace between
Oh, he did make peace between us.
the happy way. Letao, the happy way.
Very, very, very subtly. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
Now
true.
process B. We're gonna do process
now
B.
I missed that you were doing two.
Yeah,
but
we're
I
doing
wanted
two.
to-
You're gonna be a B.
I'm a B.
Yeah.
Oh.
Ooh, this is a good one. Athena.
It's an awesome. Okay, this is probably one of the most liked card in this deck by a lot of people that I can imagine, right? Athena, first of all, Athena in Greek mythology, specifically in Iliad, she played such an important role because she was the protectress or the patroness for the Greeks. She was also there protecting the Greek army and giving them the assistance that they need. Athena herself is actually a war goddess, right? But different from Ares, the violent war god. Athena is more about the strategy, the warcraft, right? The intelligence, the calculation, right, behind the violence happening on the battlefield. So usually people who pull Athena, this energy, usually shows them they have very strong leadership in them. They are not necessarily the soldier on the front line fighting their enemies, but they are the officer at the backdrop and directing people. You do this, you attack from left, you go to the right, right? And that's how we win. So Athena is usually showing that kind of high level of intelligence and planning that someone can have. And I've seen a lot of people who run their own business have Athena energy. If this is someone who works in a corporate environment, generally speaking, this person is in a very senior position. For example, maybe they're the general manager, they are the regional director and things like that, because their role is to give directions rather than doing the groundwork. Athena is also related to our rational thinking instead of emotion. One of the interesting things about Athena was that she was actually born from her father Zeus' head. She was not actually a sexual union between a man and a woman. Zeus basically gave birth to her without Hera, without his wife. And so Athena is actually a very androgynous goddess. She doesn't even look like a woman if you look at the statues, right? She wears armors and she is a virgin goddess. So she doesn't have a husband. She does not have any physical contact with a male. Even though, in Greek mythology, some male god actually made advances on her, but she just rejected all of them and she said, I'm not interested. And so Athena has nothing to do with love or nothing to do with, let's say, emotion, okay, speaking from an emotional perspective or how we feel. Athena is about fact. Athena is about the reality. Athena is about A, B, and B. Either you do it or you don't do it. And let's not whine about it, right? So a lot of people love Athena because she's very clear-cut. She's very logical, very much about logic. And Athena also rules things, for example, related to law, because she's also the goddess of justice. And so you can imagine when it comes to law, you cannot bring emotional involvement into a law case, because law is written on the paper. You kill someone, you go to jail, for example, But whether there's emotional compassion, but he killed someone because of this, right? So we can forgive him. Law doesn't care about that. You kill someone, you go to jail. Compassion does not work in Athena's field. And so usually when people talk about Athena's energy, it's about justice, it's about logic, it's about rationality, it's about leadership, and also it's about victory. Usually if a client asks me a question, will I be able to pass the exam? They pull Athena, the answer is yes.
Ah, good.
One of my favorite stories from Greek mythology revolves around Athena because my favorite constellation in the sky was Orion. And if you remember that Orion was hunting in the woods
Hey.
and came upon Athena bathing with her assistants. And he caught her in the nude. She was furious, as I remember, and turned him into the very thing that he was hunting, a stag. And his own dogs attacked and devoured him. And I think some god took pity on him and took him and threw him up into the sky as a constellation. It speaks a lot to the sort of punishment you will receive as a peeping Tom. I think is really what it comes down to.
In some versions of the myth, yes, it was Athena. In some versions of the myth, some people say it's actually Artemis.
Oh my goodness, it is Artemis.
Yeah.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
It's Diana.
Yeah, Diana.
Diana, not
So I'm
Venus.
so wrong.
No, but I understand why you would think it's Athena, because Athena and Diana, or Athena and Artemis, they share something very similar. I mean, both of them are actually daughters of Zeus, and both of them are virgin goddesses. You know, they don't let men
Yes.
touch them, and they're also very independent, staunchly independent women. Those two goddesses, yeah. Kind of
One's a
interesting.
huntress and one is a
a war goddess,
leader of war.
goddess.
Yeah. So both of them are actually quite masculine. If you look at them, specifically, I'll say Diana or Artemis, because in ancient statues, she almost looks like a tomboy.
Yeah. And she has like short hair.
Very
often,
short
right?
hair, and she looks very
Yeah.
masculine. You know, and she wears, you know, the hunting attire,
Yeah.
right? You wouldn't think, you know, you wouldn't think she's feminine in any way. Not like Aphrodite, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, is it also true in the Iliad? Is it now? Let me see if I can mess up another story. In the Iliad, Paris is given the responsibility to give a golden apple to the most beautiful of the female gods.
Correct. Yeah.
And he has a choice between Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite.
Correct. Yeah.
And he really should have been a bit more careful about who he chose. So he chose Aphrodite, and then the gods are at war on the battlefield of Troy suddenly.
yeah.
And they're acting out their parts
Yeah.
through Odysseus
Correct.
and Paris and the Trojans. And it all goes pear-shaped for the Trojans. Is it the Trojans? They're on
yeah.
Troy, the Trojans.
Trojans. Yeah.
And it was Athena, the one that was really quite pissed off, or was it Hera?
It's both of them were pissed off, actually.
Both of them.
all the god and goddess were pissed off. I mean, except for Zeus, because Zeus was a neutral in the middle.
Yeah,
So
Right.
So I actually at that time, I think Hera and Athena, both of them were on the Greek side. So that's one of the few occasions when those two women agreed with each other. Yeah, so they fall on the Greek side, and on the Trojan side, it was Apollo, Artemis, and also Aphrodite. They were on the Trojan side. So, but it's very interesting that you mentioned, you know, the Paris story, right? The golden apple story. From my study and understanding, right, I actually don't know what would be the right answer. Because in the myth, there was no indication whatsoever saying he should have chosen Hera or he should have chosen an Athena.
Right.
The only thing the story said was he chose Aphrodite, and that led to the abduction or the kidnap of Helen from Sparta to Troy, and then blah blah blah, the war happened. But nobody knows, to be honest. I mean, what if Paris had chosen Athena? I mean, nobody would say there wouldn't be a war, because someone will be offended, right? You chose one goddess, the other two goddesses will be offended, and maybe they will do something. For me, actually, I talked about this very fascinating story that Russell just mentioned in this deck, Oracle, the Mythic Heroes. Because in one of the chapters in this Oracle deck, I literally I did my own rendition of Paris' choice. And in that story, in the teaching section, I said, I don't think this story is about who he should have chosen. I think the moral of the story is whatever you choose, you just need to know you can be responsible for it. To be honest, maybe for Paris, until today, maybe he wouldn't regret. Maybe he said, okay, I know Troy fell at the end. I died. All my brothers, sisters died, right? It was millions of people died. But you know what? I get to spend 10 years with Helen, the most beautiful woman in the world, and it was worth it. If I had to choose a guy, I would still choose her, and then I'm happy to die again. You never know. So I think that more of the story is more about, do you know what the consequences are for the choice that you make? If you're okay with that, go with it.
I'm going to say that Agamemnon would disagree, and he said,
He would
you
be-
chose,
he would
you
disagree,
chose
yes.
wrong.
She chose
You
my
keep
wife.
your
yeah.
hands to yourself, and let my wife stay in Greece where she belongs with me.
Yeah.
But it is interesting, your interpretation, because it is a bit like the Bhagavad Gita, on the battlefield with Arjuna and Krishna. And the whole point isn't that there could be another way. Like the war will happen regardless of whether Arjuna decides to fight or not fight. If he decides not to fight, the war is still going to happen. So can he live with the choice not to fight? Or does he take action and fight? The war still happens, but he's showed up as the person he is rather than a coward or somebody who doesn't want to participate.
Yeah. And I also think that, of course, the trigger, right, of the Trojan War was because of Helen, right? Because Helen eloped with Paris. But when you read more into the story at a later stage, when during the war, those 10 years, when they had the battle, I highly doubt it was still about Helen. I
At
think
a certain point, you just want to kill.
the kill. Well,
You're there. You went all that way. Let's kill them.
To kill, and also, it's a perfect excuse to conquer a different country. See, you can't just bring your army to another country and say, okay, from today, I rule you. You can't do that. But if you have something like Helen as an excuse, I think it's perfect. Now, I'm not trying to say this is something we still do in modern days, but I do believe
No
that
one knows where the weapons of mass destruction actually ended up. Nobody knows where those
we
went.
still do that. Yeah.
We do.
Perfect
We do for sure.
excuse.
It's so
Perfect.
fascinating.
Perfect. Yes.
I really love this expression that Helen was the face that launched 1,000 ships. I feel the same way about my wife, that her face caused unmitigated
It's so sweet.
disasters.
It's so sweet.
But there's also this Joseph Campbell expression, the hero with 1,000 faces, and that's kind of what we're talking about. The face that launched 1,000 ships, these epic stories, and the heroes with 1,000 faces, because we're constantly see ourselves in every situation. It's just a neat little.
The beauty of mythology.
It is beautiful.
Yeah.
And archetypes, as you say.
I actually think in the whole Paris story, the person who really benefited from everything, you know who that is? That is Helen. Helen is the one who had all she wanted, and at the end of the day, she was not hurt. I also talked about Helen's story in this deck as well. Yeah, I recommend, by the way.
My favorite part of Helen's story is that when I think it must be Paris or her husband or someone comes to take her or kill her, and she shows him her breasts.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's what she did. It was at the end. Yeah, it was at the end. Her husband, Agamemnon, approached her and said, you betrayed me. I'm gonna, he was going to strike her with his sword. And Helen said, no, you don't want to kill me. And she just dropped her robes and became naked. And Agamemnon said, okay, you're still hot. Okay, I take you back. So Helen,
and honestly, Harmony does that all the time. And for you ladies at home, it is effective.
You can't be angry with me. You want this. Stuff. But
it's so primal.
Yeah. I mean, Helen is she had this very, very strong, the sexual appeal that even at the very beginning of the story, the men around the whole world was trying, approach her and trying to marry her. And then eventually Odysseus had to, invent a method. I think it was make a pact, right, or something, so that everyone would eventually agree Agamemnon would be the one marrying her.
Oh,
or whatever.
yeah.
So it was, so I don't know, in modern world, who do you think is Helen? A woman with that much sexual appeal and attraction.
Oh, Padma Lakshmi.
Padma Lakshmi. I was going to say Judi Dench.
Okay. I was going to say...
Judi Dench. No, you don't mean Judi Dench. You don't. You mean the other actor, the lady...
I really like Judi Dench.
No, You don't mean Judi Dench. You mean the lady who was in Caligula, that actress.
No, I mean the one that plays the Queen of England all the time. Judi Dench.
No,
I don't know if she's Helen, but she's good. Yeah.
no,
she's good.
you mean Helen Mirren. That's
I like Helen Mirren
but
too,
that's
but I
who you
did mean
mean.
Judi Dench.
Helen Mirren is the modern day face that launches 1,000 ships.
Her name's Helen also.
Also, her name is Helen Harmony. But
yeah.
certainly, Padma Lakshmi could just do anything that she wanted.
She wants, yeah. Some people
I
are
don't
given
know. I
that
think there's
privilege,
two.
right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's not even something that I have to say, like for Helen, right? I know this sounds biased, but it's not even something she earned. She was born.
It's not earned. It's not earned.
She was born that way, So how lucky is
Like
that?
Christy Brinkley.
There's a lovely phrase, and that I've always taken with me because I'm turning 50 next year.
Oh,
And the phrase is a man of 20 does not deserve his face, or does not deserve his face. The man of 50 has the face he deserves.
what does that mean?
All the rewards that you get from being a 20-year-old and with that face are not really yours.
I
But,
see.
But
Okay.
when you become 50, this is you've earned this face. This is the face you deserve.
Gotcha.
And
gotcha,
all the rewards that come with it.
yeah.
Like Sean Penn.
Like Sean Penn.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Oh,
or
yeah,
Russell
yeah.
Case.
Yeah, but Helen definitely, I mean, she just, given that. So, well, sometimes we have that kind of people in our life, right? You wonder how come things are so easy for them. Maybe they did
Yeah,
something really
exactly.
amazing in their past life and they're being
But
rewarded.
what happened to Helen when she turned 60?
Actually, happened story didn't end after the Trojan War. I mean, she went back to Sparta with her husband Agamemnon, and she lived until the last day she was breathing happily ever after.
So we don't know. We don't know. Do we know she was happy?
She was
Probably
yeah.
had some.
I'm sure she had
think?
other male lovers or whatever. Yeah, I mean, but
Yeah,
the
or
point there was no
menopause
literature.
is-
I wonder if she had one because she was a demigod, goddess.
Oh.
half goddess.
Yeah, so she was half divine. So I don't know if goddesses have
Maybe
menopause.
she didn't.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't go into menopause. That would lead to a happy life.
Yeah. So she's just
That's why you're taking
happy.
the estrogen, right? That's why you're taking the extra. You take the extra.
It's important, right? I mean, I'll show you the Helen card in this step.
Yeah, let's see the Helen card.
That'd be
Here.
lovely.
So this is Oracle of the Mythic Heroes, right? This is deck of cards. So Helen. Actually, when I worked with the artist to design this card, I said make her sexy, and then so this is what we did.
Yeah. It's a.
Oh, she looks
For
beautiful.
those of you who are just listening at home, it looks exactly like Helen Mirren.
Yeah. With this
No, she-
flowy white dress, and actually
Yeah.
we already toned it down a little bit. I mean, the initial Helen's breast was huge, and
Yeah. Those are magnificent.
and
Don't-
the
don't-
publisher told me we need to tone it down a little bit because we need to make sure that this is for everyone. And I'm like, okay,
It's a little bit. She looks a little bit like an anime character.
yeah. So you can see the art style is a little bit like the art. So this is
Yeah.
Helen. And who else do I want to show you? And so this is the Medusa in Mythic Heroes.
Wow.
That looks like my ex-wife.
So who else want to show? Who else? You give me a hero heroine that you want to see. Probably I have it in here.
I want to see Achilles.
Oh, I do. Okay, so Achilles. I have two cards that having Achilles in it, but one is just Achilles. The other one is more for Patroclus. So he's his lover, right? So this is Achilles, the Trojan horse behind. Yeah.
Yep.
And
Brad
the
Pitt.
one,
Brad
Pitt, exactly. So I told the artist that, so make him look like Brad Pitt, right? So
Yeah.
And the
Okay,
one
Brad Pitt,
with
yeah.
Patroclus is called Sacrifice, and this is the one with Achilles in it as well.
Oh, he's dying
Yeah.
in Brad Pitt's arms. That's a
Exactly
shame.
like the movie, right? So
Yeah.
Like Ben Affleck dying.
You'd be just like Ben Affleck dying.
I wonder how his
But
divorce is
George
going.
Clooney, really. They're
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
George Clooney and Becker.
Maybe he needs a reading. You should send him a
Oh.
DM.
Ben Affleck needs a reading.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would love
He's-
to read for celebrities actually, yeah. Because I can't.
Right?
Yeah. Anyway, but
Ben
I,
Affleck's struggling. I'm
yeah,
really.
I know.
I'm
Yeah,
worried
he
about
looks
him.
like he's struggling, right? He looks like he is,
That's a face that could launch 1,000 ships. is J-Lo.
J-Lo.
J-Lo and poor Ben can't get it together.
No.
Yeah.
Twice now.
Yeah.
It's like a Richard Burton, Elizabeth Taylor story. Twice.
Yeah.
And he just can't put it together. Man, just be happy with what you have.
But why do you
Get it
think?
together.
Why do you think that those Hollywood stars would have a much easier love life if they chose to maybe marry just a commoner instead of another star?
That's what Julia Roberts did, and I think it really worked for her.
Yeah.
She married just a light guy, just guy that ran the lights.
Grip.
The grip.
Because I think when a couple, both of them are stars, right? They both have very strong ego. It's a little bit like, no, you're not a star, I'm a star, right? So, and both
Yeah.
of them are busy. They have their, they have movies
Yeah.
and concerts, right? So I think I think as a couple, one of them has to be more supportive than the other,
Yeah, the
Right.
supportive.
right?
And this is the same issue with Zeus and Hera. Like Hera is really not comfortable with Zeus's stardom.
No, he's not. She wants to be the star too, I think, yeah.
But she doesn't get enough. She doesn't get enough stage time. She's
Yeah.
always just the angry.
Angry wife,
Wife.
yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, so
a shame.
I actually really enjoyed the chapter that I wrote for Hera in the Celestial Deities for this one. Yeah,
Ooh.
So-
Can I see that card
Yeah,
again?
yeah.
Or is it? It's here. I'm
it's
sure.
here.
Yeah,
it's
we
here,
have this
yeah.
Oh
Juno,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It's a
Oh,
Juno,
that's
yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah,
See,
so-
that is Elizabeth Taylor. That's beautiful.
It's kind of funny, right?
When I
yeah.
was 15, we were doing like sitting around with a bunch of other school kids, and people were asking the question, "What celebrity would you most want to be with? Who would you most want to bed?"
Oh.
And people were like picking out their celebrities, and I said, "Oh, Elizabeth Taylor." And like this is like 1995, and Elizabeth Taylor is this kind of
like
very ancient.
Yeah,
old-
yeah.
And it was like, no, she's a fox, man.
Yes.
That's Elizabeth Taylor's. for
But I
me.
understand that
And
a
the
lot
same-
of the older generation actor and actresses, right? I mean, they were really attractive.
They have glamour. They
Yeah.
have an allure.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
not just sitting around in their sweatpants.
Yeah,
like
yeah. It's
Winona
true.
Ryder.
It's
They
true.
they like know what they are.
Yeah,
as
yeah.
much as I wanted to be with Winona Ryder. I can tell you.
It's
Like,
true, yeah.
dress up,
It's the
man.
same in in Asia as well. A lot of the stars that we think they always shine, right? Even when they're in their 60s,
Yeah.
they still are the star.
Yeah.
Usually, those are the ones that are quite ancient, right? But people don't forget about that.
Glamour.
Yeah.
That's right. Glamorous.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So how can if people are interested in diving into a reading with you or finding you online, how can they
Right.
find
So
you and connect?
So if anyone wants to do a spiritual counseling session with me, they can access my website, www.thehealingkingdom.com. Or if they like the oracle decks, right, either the celestial deities you have in your hand or mythic heroes, they can easily just type these names on Amazon.com and it will show up. They can also find the links, the purchase link on my website, which I just mentioned, thehealingkingdom.com, and they can also purchase the deck through there. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you so much. It was so fun spending time with you and hearing your story and also chatting about mythology and pulling cards for all our readers. For those who picked Process B, what should they do to step into their leadership more?
Absolutely. Confidence. It's about building their
Okay.
confidence. Yeah. Building their confidence and understand what they deserve, right? And let the world see them shine.
Beautiful. All right, let's shine on.
So I'll just leave you with a wonderful sentence from your book, your Oracle Guidebook. A fearsome prophecy surrounded Zeus's first wife's unborn child, so he swallowed them both to avoid it. after wooing a second wife, the goddess Hera, by taking the form of a sweetly singing cuckoo bird. Zeus took to shape-shifting to seduce immortals and mortals alike, though those transgressions brought chaos to his house. That's a shame.
The moral of the story is don't shapeshift
Don't
and take
shapeshift.
lovers.
Well, it was
Like
working for him, and he just took it too far. That's the lesson.
Well, Zeus will always be
you so
Zeus,
much.
right? Zeus will always be
Zeus
Zeus.
will always be with
Zeus.
I think the deeper message there is that there's powers beyond us creating chaos in our world.
Yeah.
Or Kanye West better kind of like pull this back, man. You're kind of going right off the deep end. Letao, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's lovely to speak with you. And thank you so much for sending us your oracle. Harmony was absolutely thrilled. I did everything I could to make it a perfect birthday for her. And this gift flipped her out. She did. She was so thrilled. So thank you.
Thank you too for loving it and supporting my work. It's been a great pleasure to talk to both of you, and maybe in the future we can do another collaboration.
Yeah,
Definitely.
we'd love to hear about if you have a new deck on the way, and please let us know, and we'd lovely to talk about it.
Yeah. So the next oracle deck is actually already in the process, but probably it will come out into the market next year and not this year. We're working on it, but I won't say too much about it. I want it to be a surprise. Yeah. But look forward to it.
Okay, cool.
I'm excited.
We look forward to it as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining me today. Before we wrap up, I want to invite you to take the next step into transforming your business with the Spiritual Entrepreneur Archetype Quiz. This quiz isn't just about labeling yourself. It is a powerful tool to help you uncover your unique leadership superpower. By revealing your spiritual entrepreneur archetype, you'll gain insights that can reshape how you're approaching your business, help you attract your ideal clients, and align your energy more directly with goals that will help you feel nourished and satisfied when you reach them. This is so much more than just a simple quiz. I've put so much time and energy, blood, sweat, and tears into it, and it is the key to discovering your natural strengths and really optimizing your business or creating a business from the beginning that is aligned with your essence. You'll walk away with personalized strategy, not just to make your business more successful, but ways to stay energized as you work and make every aspect of your work an authentic representation of who you are in the world and who you are here to serve. So if you're ready to unlock this blueprint to your unique leadership style and really create a soul-centered business, head on over to my quiz now, the Spiritual Entrepreneur Archetype Quiz, and discover what your archetype is and what's waiting for you on this incredible journey of building a life and business you love. The link is in the bio. Drop me a message on Instagram. Tell me what type you are. I would love to continue to support you in this, and I would love to know what is your spiritual entrepreneur archetype. That's it. We've concluded another episode of the Finding Harmony podcast. I just want to thank you so much for doing the work that changes the world, starting with yourself. It truly does make a huge difference. Please make sure you have your automatic downloads turned on wherever you listen so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. I have so much more magic I can't wait to share with you. Lastly, if you're on Instagram, I love connecting and hearing from you. So come on over and say hello at Finding Harmony Podcast. And you can also come say hello to me personally at Harmony Slater Official. Thank you again for being here. I cannot wait to share more with you in our next episode.